We are here with Wasps and England and Lions legend, Lawrence Dallaglio. Lawrence, thank you for your time. Very much appreciated. So, big weekend, of course. We've got Bath Rugby in the Challenge Cup Final. There's Northampton Saints in the Champions Cup Final. How much of a boost is this for the Premiership Rugby after a couple of tough years, and coming up against two great French sides this weekend?
Yeah, listen, it's a welcome return to the finals day, really, because that's what all of these teams, all these players, coaches, fans, that's what they want. As you say, England haven't been necessarily as well represented in recent years. The Champions Cup has had French winners for the past 4 years, I think. So, they all deserve to be here, and they're up against French opponents. So I think that gives you an indication of the size of the challenge ahead of them. But this is one of the truly iconic stadiums in World Rugby, one of the best fan experiences in World Rugby, and I'm sure the fan experience will transfer to the players as well.
No doubt. We saw a few of those Bath fans enjoying themselves already, which is great. So, as a winner of this competition, the Heineken Cup itself, not the Challenge Cup, of course, just how high does that rank on your list of accolades? I mean, a Rugby World Cup winner, Lions series, where does that sit for
Well,
you?
listen, this is probably the greatest club competition in the world. I mean that with no disrespect to the Southern Hemisphere, but if you think about the atmosphere, the occasions, it's some of the best players in the world playing on the biggest stages of all in your club colours. So, to get there with Wasps a couple of times and to get over the line was right up there with playing international rugby, and some of the games in terms of their intensity, and hopefully this final will be no different. We saw two spectacular semi-finals this year in the Champions Cup. It's right up there with international rugby as well. So I'm thrilled for the players, because there's an excitement, there's a freshness about this final. There's no Toulouse, there's no Leinster, there's no La Rochelle. Then there's Northampton and Bordeaux, and Bordeaux obviously the newbies, and Northampton probably feels new because the last time they won it was in the dark ages when I was playing. So it's an exciting competition.
No doubt, absolutely. Touching on Northampton there, Phil Dowson, a man you know very well. How impressive has he been with this Saints side? Bringing through this young English talent, 4 of them in the Lions tour this year. Just speaking on what he's done with this club is...
Yeah, I mean, they've had a really interesting journey. Phil Dowson's obviously very experienced as a player. I played with and against him during his career, but he's only actually been at Northampton for 3 years as the main man, as the director of rugby, as the head coach, and obviously Sam Vesti and all their staff. It's a great club. It's a club that probably punches above its weight in terms of its financial muscle. You look at the wage bills of the two teams today, and you'd say Bordeaux all day long. But I think Northampton come in there as Premiership champions. They've had a challenging year this year, but the minute they got into the last 16 of the Champions Cup, they've beaten Clermont, they've beaten Castres, and they've beaten Leinster. So they deserve to be here, and I'm very impressed with Phil. He's had to juggle his selections around today because of injuries, and listen, I'm not allowed to be biased, but I am biased. I'd love to see him get over the line and see some of these young players, including 4 British and Irish Lions, win today.
No doubt. One of those British and Irish Lions, quite clearly the most talked about player in World Rugby at the moment, Henry Pollock. Back row, similar to you. What have you made of that young man?
Yeah, he's got a bit to say. He's similar to me as well at his age. So listen,
we've heard.
Listen, I think he's a breath of fresh air for the game. This time last year, he was in fancy dress in the stadium in Ireland, having a few beers, and in 12 months he's achieved what some players try and achieve over their whole career, literally. And obviously the culmination of which has been getting selected as the youngest British and Irish Lion in what is a very, very competitive squad. So super impressed with him. Every time people want to say, well, today's a big step up for him, he seems to deliver the goods. I mean, his performance in Dublin was probably one of the best performances for someone of that age, given the quality of the opponent. And I think that probably put him on the plane to Australia. So he seems like a young man who, every time he gets a challenge, he just seems to embrace it and he takes it in his stride. So, this is a huge game for him, biggest game of his career. And, for all the players, not just Henry Pollock, you just want to seize the day. You work so hard during your career to earn the right to be here. You don't know how many times you'll ever get to come back and play in these big games, so you have to seize the moment.
No doubt. And touching on that, Andy Farrell's obviously, as you said, picked a very strong squad for this tour. What sort of stands out to you on that? How do you think they're going to play if you were to sort of guess based on the athletes he's got in there? And how do you see the series playing out as a whole?
Well, I think he wants to play, he wants to have a number of different ways of playing, really. You want to see some rugby that probably is similar to what we've seen from the Irish team over many years, which is a powerful forward game, very cohesive, a clear understanding of roles and responsibilities. Quick ruck ball, as simple as that. Score tries. Hard grounds in Australia. You're not going to kick the ball all the time. You're going to have to run and be prepared to run when it's up, when it's on. So, I think the quality of the squad across all the positions gives Andy Farrell and all his coaches the ability to play in many different ways. And that's not sitting on the fence in Switzerland. Listen, the Lions, for the first time in a long time, go into this series as favourites. I think anyone who's watched Super Rugby this season, anyone who knows about Joe Schmidt knows that, listen, this Australian team are vastly improved. They're never easy to beat in their own country. So anyone who thinks this will just be a walkover test series should think again. But I do hope that the Lions are able to win their first series for 12 years, because there are many players that are picked for the British and Irish Lions. And in the eternal words or the inspirational words of Jim Telfer, the coach,
Greatest,
getting picked is the easy bit. Winning is what it's all about. And if you come back from Australia a winning Lion, then you really join a list of even fewer names that have actually gone over and won a tour.
No doubt, Lawrence. And just one final one for us, because you've been very generous with your time. What would you say to these young men taking to the pitch this weekend in the final? What would be your biggest piece of advice?
Well, the most important thing about winning is believing you can win, and belief in yourself, belief in your teammates, in the processes that you've practiced and rehearsed and gone through over and over again, and live for the moment. You've got to somehow summon a way of producing your very best performance of your career on days like today.
Sure.
You need a 9 or a 10 out of 10 performance individually, and then if you can do that, then you're going to be a very hard team to beat.
No doubt. Lawrence Dallaglio.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Really appreciate your time.
Cheers, guys.